Chapter 1891, Unaffected. If anyone else in the Zai family apart from Zai Sheng did not mean that, they would definitely have found a better solution. How could they have let an unmarried woman like Xiao Nan sleep in Zai Sheng's room considering he was unmarried as well? If the Zai family did not mean that, what else could they possibly mean? As Jia hugged Zai Hua's arm to sleep, she could not help but murmur, "Mom, when can I call Auntie Xiao my auntie?" This was too draggy. Her classmates were all rather decisive and straightforward when dating. If one party confessed and the other accepted, they would get together. If the other party rejected, then that was it. If they accepted each other, they would be holding hands the next day, calling each other husband and wife. Zai Hua rolled her eyes. "Although your uncle has been married once, it's the first time I'm seeing your uncle acting so romantic." There were some things better left unsaid in front of her daughter since she was still young. As a married woman with a child, Zai Hua could tell that Zai Sheng looked at Xiao Nan even more enthusiastically than before. Like today, Zai Sheng had looked at Xiao Nan so warmly that it seemed as though he could not wait to swallow Xiao Nan whole. She did not know about other men, but she was clear about her brother, Zai Sheng. Men loved because of sex, while women had sex because of love. Zai Sheng was different. Zai Sheng saw love and sex as the same thing. It was because of love that he had the impulse to have sex. Since Zai Sheng lusted for Xiao Nan, it was proof that Zai Sheng's feelings for Xiao Nan had reached a certain point. Her younger brother was not a loose person. Otherwise, Zai Sheng would not have been able to stop himself from touching Qiu Chenxi during their 3 years of marriage. At that time, the couple had gotten a divorce rapidly because of Qiu Chenxi's affair. At that time, no one had mentioned how Zai Sheng had never touched Qiu Chenxi in their 3 years of marriage. This meant that not only had Qiu Chenxi gotten into an affair, but her first time had also not been with her husband, Zai Sheng. Because of this, the Qiu family and the Shi family had been rather down-to-earth about the separation. Old Master Shi did not even dare to use his deceased master's name, Shi Peng, to accuse Zai Sheng or prevent Zai Sheng from getting a divorce. "Don't worry. You'll definitely have an auntie before the year ends." Based on how passionate Zai Sheng was, he would probably go berserk trying to hold it in any longer. For the sake of his own happiness, they could no longer wait, much less Zai Sheng himself. As such, Zai Hua was not at all worried about Zai Sheng and Xiao Nan. She had realized through this matter with Wei that Xiao Nan was much calmer and more rational than she was. But everyone had their own weaknesses. Xiao Nan's were the Xiao family and Zai Sheng. "Mom, do you think Auntie Xiao likes my uncle?" There was no question that her uncle liked Auntie Xiao, but she could not be sure whether Auntie Xiao liked her uncle. Her uncle was such an outstanding man. If Auntie Xiao had feelings for him, she should have made a move, right? Besides, the ages of the two of them added to more than 80. Zai Hua yawned. "Your Auntie Xiao's IQ toward someone whom she doesn't like is around 110. Just like an average American student's." She had heard about this before and knew about it too. "Then, how about toward someone she likes?" "I should say that your Auntie Xiao's IQ toward people she has feelings for is 250. Zai Hua's had been 250 while she had been studying, so Jia did not understand what Zai Hua meant in that moment. So high? That's extraordinary. She was a genius." Zai Hua cackled. "What do you mean by 250? I meant that she's a fool. It's a homophone." Xiao Nan was almost turning 40 and had just left that bunch of blood-sucking devils that was the Xiao family with her own money to lead her own life. That was more than enough to prove how foolish she was. "I'm sure she has feelings for your uncle. Do you know why Xiao Nan stayed in your uncle's house for the new year?" "No." Xiao Nan's ex-boyfriend came back, wanting to reconcile with her and even get married with her. Xiao Nan refused and directly asked for help to punch that guy and get rid of him. She didn't even hesitate. Jiajia's eyes twinkled. Did that mean that her uncle had a love rival? Then, look again at how Xiao Nan treats your uncle. Why do you think that Xiao Nan interfered in my matters and told me that something was wrong with your dad's relationship with Wei Wei? Think about it again. It's true that you're a child, but why would she treat you so well and care so much about you? Actually, Xiao Nan is quite intelligent. She knows that it'll be easier for her to get together with your uncle if she wins his family over first. But talking about that, I'm quite pleased with the effort she's made. If Weida had made such great effort at that time, she would never have gotten into such a huge fight with her family, one that lasted over a decade, and neither would she have had so many regrets. Perhaps, from this alone, she could tell that Weida's love for her was nowhere near as sincere as Xiao Nan's love for Zai Sheng before she had gotten married to him, or even in the 10 years of marriage to him. Xiao Nan knew to take good care of her and Jiajia. Jiajia's lips moved, but she remained silent. She did not agree with her mom's thoughts. She did not think that Auntie Qiao was treating her well for her uncle's sake. Humph! That was purely her mom's thoughts. She felt that Auntie Qiao treated her well purely because of who she was. It was definitely not because of her uncle. The young lady threw a temper and unhappily turned her back to her birth mother. In less than 3 minutes, she fell asleep. Even though such a huge matter had happened today, Jiajia felt assured and peaceful enough to fall asleep with her biological mother by her side. Hearing her daughter's deep breaths, Zihua sighed and caressed her daughter's head. It was already considered not bad that she and Jiajia could fall asleep tonight. Today had been an arduously long day for Zihua, as though an entire year had passed. Thankfully, Zihua did not feel too miserable with her daughter by her side. Hearing her daughter's familiar breathing, Zihua subconsciously fell asleep too. When she woke up, she felt her daughter leaning against her. The sun rays were bursting through the windows, and the birds outside were chirping incessantly. The earth was still rotating and life had to go on. All that had happened was that she had met a Bast *RD and that she would be getting a divorce. That was no big deal. At least, even after she had gotten divorced from Weide, there would still be so many people supporting her by her side. Chapter 1892, Benefiting. Trouble and misfortunes never came alone, while blessings never came in a pair. There were some troubles that always found their way in somehow. When this happened, the only thing Zihua was thankful for was that her family was the one getting targeted, not her. "I'm sorry, but you can't enter." The people in the courtyard held Chu Chenxi back, preventing her from meeting the Zai family. It could be said that Chu Chenxi was first on the Zai family's blacklist. No matter where they went, the Zai family did not find it bothersome or embarrassing, and they would always make a point to blacklist Chu Chenxi. Of course, the moment Chu Chenxi returned to Pingcheng and tried to enter, she was denied entry. Chu Chenxi, who was being barred from entering everywhere, was in a foul mood. At this time, she could not help but reminisce about how it had been in the 3 years that she had been married to Zai Sheng. At that time, it was as though she held a green pass in her hands. No matter where she went, she never heard the word no. "Why don't you understand? I am part of this family. Don't you know? What right do you have to stop me from going back to my own house?" Chu Chenxi was frustrated. After marrying Zai Sheng, she had only stayed in this house for a few days before moving to the capital. In the capital, she had stayed in the military courtyard. At that time, Chu Chenxi had been extremely proud and happy about that. Now that many years had passed, it seemed that the soldiers of the military compound had changed and they did not recognize her as the Zai family's daughter-in-law who had been part of the Zai family for 3 years. Chu Chenxi could not do anything about this. "Since there is such a person in the Zai family, why don't you tell me your name? I can help you ask Chief Zai's family." The soldier was resolute and refused to let Chu Chenxi in. Even though Chu Chenxi insisted that she was part of the Zai family, the soldier refused to back down. Because she had been looked at in a different light after mentioning her name previously, Chu Chenxi was reluctant to reveal her identity. After meeting with dead ends a few times, Chu Chenxi realized that she had been blacklisted by the Zai family. Chu Chenxi was upset. She had indeed committed a mistake while she was younger. But that was all in the past. She was sensible now and would not make any more mistakes. Did the Zai family think that their reputation was more important than Zai Sheng's happiness and partner? How selfish! Fine. Tell the Zai family that I'm from the Qi family. Chu Chenxi used her mother's surname instead of her own surname. Chu Chenxi had no other choice. The Zai family had such a strong opinion against her, but if they knew that the person who came was her mother, they would probably not be as stubborn since they had been friends for decades. Please wait here for a moment. I'll help you ask them. The soldier was not deliberately trying to embarrass her, but he could not possibly allow just anyone to enter. However, asking Chief Zai's family if they approved of this visitor would do no harm. Someone from the Qi family. When Zai Sheng first heard this name, he had not realized what was going on. But once he caught sight of Zai Yaowai, he finally regained his senses. There was only one person with that surname who had contact with the Zai family. Zai Sheng was not a gossip monger, and the moment he heard the name, he handed the phone over to Zai Yaowai. It would be up to his father whether he wanted to see that person with the surname Qi. The moment Zai Yaowai heard that someone from the Qi family had come to find him, the person who came to his mind at once was Qi Minlin. But his impression of her now was completely different. I don't want to see her. At that time, Qi Minlin had created so much trouble, but he had not even taken issue with that. In the end, Qi Minlin had even raised a daughter like Chu Chenxi to harm his son. He never wanted to see that woman again in this lifetime. If he were really to meet her, Miao Miao would definitely not take it lying down. For the sake of his family's peace, Zai Yaowai would be a fool to meet Qi Minlin. Having been rejected even after she used the Qi family's name, Chu Chenxi was in a horrible mood. She was right in front of the Zai family's house. That was her in-laws' house, but she was being barred from entering it. Was there anything worse than not being able to return home? Since she could not even meet them, Chu Chenxi had no other way of begging for the Zai family's forgiveness to allow Zai Sheng to get back together with her. Since there was nothing else she could do, Chu Chenxi returned to the Chu family's house after achieving nothing. Upon arriving at the Chu family's house, Chu Chenxi saw only her mom. Her dad was not at home. Did my dad go out to find that vixen and his son again? What was so good about having a son? She could not understand what her dad was thinking. Once I reconcile with Zai Sheng, my dad should never think of getting any benefits from the Zai family because of me. He should just rely on that son of his if he wants to get promoted or get rich in the future. If she could turn back time, she would never have tried to carry her family up when she had just gotten married for the sake of elevating her status so that she would match up to Zai Sheng. Her dad had betrayed their family and had found a woman who had given birth to his son. Her dad was not worth her help. Qi Minlin was speechless after hearing her daughter's optimistic words. It's been a month. Have you met the Zai family or spoken to Zai Sheng? She had to have made slight progress after so much effort. Chu Chenxi's expression darkened. It's not as if you don't know the kind of people the Zai family is and the kind of habits they have. They don't like going out and won't visit others. Even waiting at their door won't be that easy. But I don't know why the Zai family suddenly returned to Pingcheng yesterday. Otherwise, I wouldn't have returned either. I've already asked my friends to find out what's going on in the Zai family. I'm guessing that Zai Hua must have gotten into some trouble, and that's why the entire family made their way back here. Thinking about how Zai Hua had been so arrogant and dismissive toward her when she had first gotten married to Zai Sheng, Chu Chenxi was enraged. If Zai Hua was truly down on her luck now, Chu Chenxi felt that this was simply retribution for her attitude back then. Marrying Weida was the most stupid thing Zai Hua could have done. Zai Hua's family background was outstanding, while Weida's family background was terrible. Zai Hua would have to suffer a lot because of Weida. Her mom did not have much for her dad to take advantage of, but her dad had always relied on her and her mom to rise to his status today. Even so, he had found himself a mistress who had even given birth to his son. Given Zihua's relationship with Weide, it was only a matter of time before Weide would no longer be able to tolerate Zihua's power and would similarly find himself a mistress to give birth to his son. Chapter 1893, Thought It Through. What Chu Chenexai did not know was that her thoughts almost reflected reality. The greatest difference, however, was that Weide had found this woman well before getting married to Zihua. He had even gotten married to that woman and had a son. The order had been reversed. You're happy because you think Zihua got into trouble? Chenexai, do you really intend to remarry Zai Sheng? Don't harp on how fiercely the siblings fought when Zihua married Weide. Zihua is still Zai Sheng's elder sister, after all. You also said that the entire Zai family returned. Can't you tell that they're a tight-knit family and place great importance on Zihua? If Chenexai had such a mindset and thought that Zihua deserved the trouble she was going through, it would be impossible for Chenexai to reconcile with Zai Sheng. Chu Chenexai was upset. Mom, what's up with you lately? Why are you always siding with outsiders? I'm your daughter. Besides, I'm no fool. I'm only telling you my deepest inner thoughts in front of you. Do you really think I don't know how to behave in front of the Zai family? Qi Minlan sighed in exhaustion. Chenexai, you'll understand when you get to my age. While you were not around, I thought about it a lot. It's not entirely your dad's fault that our relationship has deteriorated to such a state. I'm at fault too. When I was younger, I often laughed at your dad for being a freeloader. If not for me, he would never have gotten to where he is today. Because of this, I never had much respect for your paternal grandparents while they were still alive, much less treated them like my own parents. Since I never treated them sincerely, it was only natural that they were never biased toward me either. Chenexai, you have to remember that everyone's heart is made of flesh, after all. Only sincerity will be able to move someone's heart. You're always so scheming. The Zai family isn't foolish either. On the contrary, they are very clever. Your acting skills may be top-notch, but once the Zai family sees just a little of what you really think, it'll be impossible between Zai Sheng and you. Yes, you can act, and you may be good at it. But the problem is that you'll be with Zai Sheng for the rest of your life. Will you be able to keep up that pretense for the rest of your life? Don't think that you should be more important than Zihua because you're Zai Sheng's wife and you're the one who married him. If his wife is really more important than his elder sister, then why did you get divorced from Zai Sheng? It's obvious that his wife is an outsider to him. Her daughter had never shared a good or close relationship with Zai Sheng, while Zihua had grown up alongside Zai Sheng. One was an immediate family, while the other was someone who popped up along the way and had even betrayed him. Even a fool would be able to differentiate between who was more important, much less the brilliant Zai family. There was no way her daughter would be able to hide her scheming ideas from the Zai family. I know that you want to remain strong and you won't admit defeat even now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be insisting on reconciling with Zai Sheng instead of settling for an average man and leading an average life. Zai Sheng is a chief. Besides Zai Sheng, there won't be another man who will let you become a chief's wife. Mom was once young too. I understand your ambition. But I want to teach you today that you can't treat yourself as the only intelligent person in this world. You're scheming against other people and even complaining about them not taking your bait. That makes no sense at all. I have to say it even if you don't want to hear it. If you really want to get remarried to Zai Sheng, there's only one thing you need to do. That is to fall in love with Zai Sheng and devote your life to Zai Sheng and his family. Treat Zai Sheng like you really care for him. To put it bluntly, if you treat every single person in the Zai family like you treat me, there might be hope for you and Zai Sheng. Qi Minlan had already lived to such an age and no longer cared about fighting over men. There was nothing else she would be bothered by. The only worry she had was her daughter finding a good partner before she passed on. The Zai family was indeed a good target, but their standards were high. Because of her daughter's reckless behavior over the years, as well as her barren state, Chi Minlin knew that the Zai family would never be able to simply accept her daughter. After all, they were not saints, and neither were they operating a charity. It was almost certain that her daughter's dream would never come true. In such a huge home, Chi Minlin was the only person apart from the caretaker. Thus, Chi Minlin had lots of time alone to reflect on her life. It was rare that Chi Minlin had finally come to her senses. It was exactly because of this that Chi Minlin had become even more miserable. She had come to her senses, but her daughter had not. She was already in her 70s and did not have many more years left. Not being able to see her grandchild was a regret, but her greatest regret was that her daughter had not found someone who would take care of her for the rest of her life. If Chu Chenexai was willing to listen to her, Chi Minlin wanted very much to persuade Chi Minlin to give up on Zai Sheng. Her daughter probably did not really love Zai Sheng either. Otherwise, she would not have gotten into affairs or relationships with so many men after her divorce, eventually paying for her lifestyle with her health. The only thing that attracted her daughter was Zai Sheng's status as a chief. Being the chief's wife gave her daughter pride but not necessarily happiness. Instead of climbing this peak that was the Zai family so blindly, why did she not find a man who was more suitable for her? But Chi Minlin was clear that given her daughter's situation, there would probably not be anyone who was willing to marry her daughter purely out of sincere love. That man would probably have his own hidden agendas too. Even so, her daughter seemed to be in the dark about this situation and insisted on targeting Zai Sheng. Chu Chenexai was already in her 40s. How could she be as innocent as she had been in her 20s? Actually, she had already subtly felt whatever her mother had just said. But she just could not take it lying down. She would feel aggrieved if she did not laugh at Zai Hua now that she had run into some trouble. Daughters who married out were like spilled water. Zai Hua was a daughter who had married out of the family. She was the one who had married into the Zai family. After marrying Zai Sheng, she was the Zai family's mistress. As such, why did she not have the right to fight back at Zai Hua at her lowest, since Zai Hua was an outsider who had not only done nothing to please her but had even tried to provoke her? Why should she try to help and comfort Zai Hua? She was willing to treat Zai Sheng well, but not Zai Hua. But in order to remarry Zai Sheng, there were some things she would have to do even if she did not enjoy doing them. There was no choice since Zai Sheng was biased toward the Zai family instead of her. Chu Chenexai bit on her lip and made a decision. Mom, don't worry. I won't let you worry about me again in the future. I'm certain of the path I'm going to take now. I'm sure that Zai Hua's in trouble because of that useless husband of hers. I'll figure out the situation and see how to help Zai Hua. Chapter 1894, They All Know. At the very least, before Zai Sheng's feelings for me become deeper than they are for the Zai family, I'll strive hard to treat the Zai family just like how I treat you. As long as she could get remarried to Zai Sheng and become the chief's wife, she was willing to endure whatever hardship that would come her way. Upon hearing this, Chi Minlin understood that her daughter had not truly understood her words. However, this change was still good compared to her daughter's mindset in the past. She was uncertain if the Zai family would be willing to give her daughter a second chance due to this change, but since her daughter was still unwilling to give up, she would just have to allow her daughter to take another shot. Unfortunately, the matter between Zai Hua and Weida had not created too much trouble. Although Zai Hua had been taken to the police station while Wei Xiaomei and Weida had been sent to the hospital, the police officers had wisely chosen to keep mum about the situation after learning of Zai Hua's identity. There were some situations where they could follow the rules strictly, but there were some things that could never be said. As for Wei Xiaomei and Wei Dai, who had been sent to the hospital, they would never reveal to outsiders why they had been hospitalized or who had beaten them up. The hospital only knew that they had accepted 2 lightly injured patients. They knew nothing apart from that. Because of that, it was difficult for Chuchenxi to learn about what had happened to Zihua. Zihua gradually calmed down, and Jiajia also slowly recovered thanks to the support from the people around her. But the entire Wei family was sleepless that night. Father and Mother Wei had wanted to find Jiajia at that very moment and use her as a bargaining chip to settle the matter with Zihua. The problem was that Father and Mother Wei had practically combed the entire Pingcheng but had still not managed to find their granddaughter, Jiajia. Since the elderly couple paid no heed to their granddaughter, Jiajia, at all, they had no clue about where to look for her besides the two houses. With no other choice, Father Wei thought of calling Jiajia's teacher to ask whom Jiajia was close to in school. Within a minute of coming up with this solution, Father Wei then realized that he knew where Jiajia studied, but not who her teacher was or her mobile number. After all, Zihua had been the one taking care of all these matters. We have no direction at all. Weida did not know how to respond to such an answer. This was the first time he truly felt how neglected Jiajia was by his parents. Dad, Mom, you guys are really too neglectful. Jiajia is your granddaughter and Zihua's only daughter. It's not as if Jiajia can't feel how you guys treat her. Zihua can see that too. How much feeling could Zihua and Jiajia possibly have for our family? How else will I be able to persuade Zihua to let go of this matter? Their interpersonal relationships were truly too weak. Mother Wei realized her mistake, but it was too late for that now. I haven't seen you taking care of your daughter, Jiajia, either. Besides, I still have my grandson, Wei Wei. Mother Wei had always placed more emphasis on her son, Wei Dai. Whomever her son liked was whom she liked too. In Mother Wei's heart, her grandson, Wei Wei, would never match up to her son, Wei Dai. She gave birth to her son, while her grandson was someone else's child. Since Wei Dai placed more emphasis on his son, Wei Wei, and had even revealed his dissatisfaction toward Zihua in his words, Mother Wei had unhesitatingly stood on Wei Dai's side and had long ago expressed her dissatisfaction for her daughter-in-law, Zihua. As such, she had also been completely biased toward Wei Wei in front of Jiajia, treating Wei Wei like a king. Without her son's attitude as a guide, Mother Wei would never have treated Wei Wei and Jiajia so differently. Now that her son was blaming her, Mother Wei had to explain herself. Her different treatment of her granddaughter and grandson was because of her son's love. Wei Dai's head was splitting. He could not find a good rebuttal to his mother's explanation since that was the truth. It was shocking. Had he really been so obvious in his difference in treatment? If even his mom had seen it so clearly, how could Zihua and Jiajia not have experienced it? Wei Dai still remembered the promises he had made to Zihua before their marriage. If he had not given Jiajia enough paternal love all these years, Zihua would probably already have had lots to say about that. It might be good for us that Jiajia is missing. Zihua cares a lot about Jiajia. If I perform well now, there might be a way to salvage the situation. Mom, Dad, help me get the discharge procedures done now. I want to find Jiajia. I don't think that's right. Mother Wei disagreed. Your injuries aren't light. If you don't recover well now, you'll never recover. It would be even better if her son did not need to return to the military and could stay at home to recuperate for another 3 months. That was what the Zai family's son had done. Why could other families' sons do that but not hers? I think Ada's solution sounds quite good. He hasn't been injured that badly anyway. If we keep waiting until Ada gets a divorce from Zihua, our family will really have nothing then. No matter what, it boiled down to the fact that the Wei family had nothing to call their own and depended solely on Zihua. They knew that they would be left with nothing once Zihua severed her ties with their family. If he had known that such a day would come, he would have helped Zihua out a little more. In that case, he would be able to convince Zihua to forgive Wei Dai as her father-in-law. Without having established any relationship previously, Father Wei knew that Zihua would never listen to him even if he was thick-skinned enough to beg for mercy on Wei Dai's behalf. If he were really to do that, he would only be embarrassing himself. After Father Wei and Wei Dai came to an agreement, Father Wei immediately handled the discharge procedures for his son. It was only then that the Wei family found out that the Zai family had already returned to Pingcheng. Upon hearing the news, Wei Dai, who had just been discharged, turned pale. It seems like the Zai family has already found out about me and Xiaomei. Otherwise, why would the Zai family turn up all together in Pingcheng? Dad, Mom, when we go to the Zai family's house later and if they want to beat me up, remember not to stand in their way. You should even try to join in and help them beat me and scold me. Anyway, I'm sure I won't die from that. All these injuries don't mean anything. Chapter 1895, You Must Be Crazy. In order to keep his position, Wei Dai was more than willing to endure this pain. At such a time, Wei Dai was clearer than anyone that his family had to do so for him to be in an advantageous position. Although Mother Wei was reluctant to do so, her husband had already agreed to it. Besides, her son had been the one to suggest it. To be honest, Mother Wei had already gotten used to the life of a wealthy mistress. She did not want to give up her life in Pingcheng. Mother Wei had not forgotten that the house she was living in had been purchased by Zihua and had been purchased before her marriage to her son. As such, it was considered a premarital asset. Mother Wei regretted her actions. Had she known that such a day would come, she would never have let her son put up an act and convince Zihua to have the house deed in her name. At the time of purchasing this house, Zihua had been completely devoted to Wei Dai and thought wholeheartedly about him. She was afraid that the Wei family would be uncomfortably living in that house and thus suggested that the house be purchased under Wei Dai's name. Initially, Wei Dai had been touched too. Given his meager salary as a soldier, it would already be good if he could let his parents stay in a nicer apartment back home. He would never have been able to afford a large house in a city like Pingcheng. Who would give up the chance of owning a house? But to prove that he was only with Zihua because of love and not because of any other ill intentions, Wei Dai disagreed with Zihua's idea and insisted that Zihua put her own name down. When Zihua refused to do it, Wei Dai had even gotten upset over it. In the end, Zihua purchased the house under her own name. But afterward, Zihua was even more determined to be with Wei Dai. Before getting pregnant with Jiajia, she even treated Wei Wei like her own son. After all, it was not just Father and Mother Wei who had seen Wei Dai's bias toward Wei Wei. Even before marriage, Zihua had realized it. At that time, Zihua had been foolish and gullible, thinking that Wei Dai treated Wei Wei well out of sympathy and responsibility because Wei Wei was fatherless. That meant that Wei Dai would treat their own child even better than he treated Wei Wei. In this way, Zihua had pampered Wei Wei before Jiajia was born. When Zihua gradually felt that the atmosphere in the Wei family was strange and that the Wei family was placing much more importance on Wei Wei than Jiajia and voiced it out, there were some things that had already been set in stone. The owner of the house could no longer be changed. That house deed was already under Zihua's name. When Zihua decided to purchase another property, she was much more cautious. Before marriage, she had offered to register the house under Wei Dai's name. She had been willing to do so at that time. But after marriage, since she was still the only one paying for the property, she would have to be the one to decide whose name was on the property deed. The more the Wei family tried to coerce her into putting Wei Dai's or Wei Wei's name in the property deed, the more Zihua refused. As such, Mother Wei was always clear that the moment her son divorced Zihua, the Wei family might very well become homeless in Pingcheng the very same day. The two properties that were worth several million yuan were both Zihua's. Although Mother Wei was always muddle-headed, there were times when her mind was clear too. When Mother Wei had no clue about where to find Jiajia the previous day, she had taken the opportunity and spent some money consulting a lawyer. She explained that her relative had encountered such a situation and asked what her relative should do to maximize their interests. The lawyer told Mother Wei that the male party had to obtain custody of their daughter. Only then would the male be able to retain guardianship of the house under the daughter's name as her guardian. The problem was that the male had deliberately concealed his marriage status and had even lied that his son was his nephew. This was cheating someone into marriage. Besides, the one at fault was the male. With all these factors, if they were really to go to court, the male party would be at a severe disadvantage. Because of the male's dishonesty and deception, it was very likely that custody would be awarded to the child's mother. The lawyer was an expert at reading people too. Just based on what he had heard, he could roughly guess what Mother Wei had not said either. After hearing what Mother Wei had described, the lawyer had even boldly asked if the child shared a closer relationship with her father or her mother. Mother Wei had not answered, but her expression had given everything away. The lawyer explained that there was no case to be fought if the daughter preferred to follow her mother. It was a losing case. If the male party wanted to minimize his losses, it was best to negotiate with the woman and settle the matter amicably. Not getting a divorce was the best result for the male. The lawyer had seen all kinds of people and he knew straight away that this man was probably a loser with a powerful wife. It was clear from how afraid of his wife he was that this man depended on his wife and dared not offend her. He did not dare to offend her, yet he still got into an affair behind her back. How bold of him! He truly deserved whatever he was going through now. Mother Wei knew nothing about what the lawyer truly thought, but after receiving such an answer from the lawyer, she understood that Jia had to follow Wei De. Otherwise, the moment Wei De divorced Zai Hua, the whole Wei family would have to go back to farming in the countryside. Mother Wei had no intentions of doing so. As such, when she heard about her son's plan and how he would give his life for that, Mother Wei did not try to stop him. After reaching a consensus, the trio raced to the Zai family's courtyard with panicked looks on their faces, demanding to meet the Zai family. It was not Wei De's first time visiting the Zai family's courtyard. When Zai Sheng had brought the elderly couple to the capital, Zai Hua had been the one to solve any problems in the courtyard when situations arose. Wei De had accompanied her there several times. As such, Wei De was not exactly unfamiliar to the people in the courtyard. But when Wei De rushed in as usual, he was stopped by the guards. Wei De was confused. The guards had even touched his wound while trying to stop him. It was so painful that Wei De felt the hairs on his body stand straight up. "It's me. It's not like you don't recognize me. I'm the Zai family's son-in-law. I have something urgent. Hurry and let go of me." He was in a hurry to win Zai Hua back. At this time, Wei De was in no mood to throw his weight around as a company commander or throw a tantrum. Since he had not thrown a tantrum, the soldier gave an explanation. "I'm sorry. You don't have permission to enter. If you really need something, I'll help you ask Chief Zai's family if they're willing to meet you." Mother Wei was unhappy. He was just a watchdog. How dared he stop her son? "You must be crazy. The Zai family's daughter is my daughter-in-law and my son's wife. The Zai family is our in-law. We're relatives. What does this have to do with an outsider like you?" Chapter 1896, I was forced. You should really get your brain checked if you want to stop us. Believe it or not, I can fire you if I just mention this to my in-law. The soldier frowned. "That won't do. Unless Chief Zai agrees to it, you can't enter. As to whether I get fired, I'll receive my instructions from the military." Seeing Mother Wei throwing a tantrum, Wei De stopped her immediately. That would be too embarrassing for him. "All right. Please let him know. Just tell him that it's a very important matter. Jia is missing and we have to find her." Once they knew that their daughter was missing, he would not even have to step in. Zai Hua would definitely rush out at once to find their daughter with him. Hearing that a child was missing, the soldier was frantic too. But very quickly, the soldier remembered that there had been a teenage young lady sitting in the Zai family's car when they went out the previous night. That young lady had come back after shopping late at night too. She had not gone missing. Could it be that there was another child in the Zai family? No matter what it was, the soldier relayed Wei De's message to the Zai family, who sneered at those words. Miao Jing slammed the table in anger. It's been an entire day. Is he only thinking about Jia now? Why didn't he think about Jia and Hua yesterday? Ask him to scram. Who was he taking as a fool? There was no way Wada would be in a hurry to find Jia out of his concern for her. The Zai family was a huge tree that Wada clearly did not want to lose. What made Miao Jing most upset was that the incident had taken place a whole day earlier, but Wada had only come to find them now. Wada truly did not care about Zihua or Jia. This paternal love was too fake that she did not even want to let Jia know about it in case she got upset. The soldier could not help but ask, "The child isn't lost, is she?" "No." Afterward, the soldier did not pose any more questions. Since the child had not gone missing, nothing else was important. "I'm sorry. Chief Zai's family does not have time to entertain you. Please leave." Yesterday, Chief Zai's family had already made the announcement never to let the Wei family in. The privileges that had once been granted to them were now being withdrawn, including Wei Dai, who was the Zai family's son-in-law. The soldier was curious why the Zai family had suddenly returned to Pingcheng to stay in the courtyard, but kept his curiosity to himself. It was best for him to do his job without being too nosy. But he was not blind. There had to be something going on in the Zai family for them to have made such a huge move. Now that they had given specific instructions to restrict the Wei family's access, it could only mean that the problem lay with the Wei family. The child was certainly not missing, but the Wei family had said that she was missing. This was interesting. As outsiders, they could only listen to their leader's instructions and carry out their duties dutifully. Everything else had nothing to do with them. "Are you sure that the Zai family said that? You'd better go ask Zihua. Isn't she anxious that her child is missing?" Wada did not believe that Zihua would tell him to scram. He believed that Zihua hated that he had been in an affair with Wei Xiaomei. But Zihua would never neglect her own daughter out of anger. Zihua was incapable of doing that. "That's right. Please leave. Don't block the entrance," the soldier said straightforwardly, embarrassing the Wei family. Wada clenched his fist. "I don't believe you. Don't worry. I won't embarrass you either. I'll make a phone call to Zihua myself." Up until now, Wada had not thought of how to face Zihua or explain that he had not done all these willingly. But at this point in time, Wada had no choice but to face Zihua and thus made the phone call. With the Zai family's attitude, Wada was slightly worried that Zihua would refuse to answer his call. Unexpectedly, his phone call had gotten through after just 3 dial tones. In the instant that his phone call was connected, Wada's face lit up. "Hua, it's me. Listen to me. I'm not lying. Jia is really missing. Wada, let's get a divorce. You can choose whether we should get a divorce amicably or whether we should go to court." Zihua was willing to accept this phone call not because she wanted to hear Wada spout his nonsense. She was clear about whether her daughter had gone missing. Yesterday, if Jiaonan had not brought her daughter home, Jia might very well be missing for real today. Had that happened, she would not be a Zai if she did not kill the Wei family. The Wei family knew all about Wada's relationship with Wei Xiaomei and Wei Wei's heritage. That was why they had never cherished their granddaughter, Jia, since they already had a grandson. After having her daughter, Zihua had not been able to accept the Wei family's indulgence in Wei Wei. Now that Zihua had found out the truth of the matter, even more so she could not tolerate the Wei family's shamelessness. Since their grandson was so good, she would help the Wei family and let their family reunite. She would let the fatherless Wei Wei have his father so that Wada would no longer have to pamper his son so secretly by saying that he was Wei Wei's uncle. Wada felt as though there was something buzzing in his ears, as if something had just exploded in his head. "Hua. What are you saying? Divorce? No. I'm not going to get a divorce." Wada roared. "Hua, why don't you give me a chance to explain? I can explain to you what you saw yesterday. We've been a couple for so many years. Don't you have a little trust in me? It wasn't voluntary. I was tricked into it. I didn't know that Xiaomei felt that way toward me. She drugged me. When I sobered up, I was mad. Even though she isn't our family's biological child, I've always seen her as my little sister. After what happened yesterday, I can't face her in our family anymore. So, I sent her back to the countryside yesterday. Hua, I'm innocent. I'm a victim too. Weida could not care less about the guards standing at the courtyard entrance and tried to explain everything to Zihua in a frenzy. No matter what, he would never get divorced from Zihua. He had never thought of ending his relationship with Zihua. In this lifetime, his wife would be Zihua alone. He would never get a divorce. Never. If he were to get divorced, his position as a company commander would be in danger, let alone becoming a regiment commander. Without a wife like Zihua, he would have nothing. He could not afford to let his 20 years' worth of effort go down the drain because of his marriage. Zihua almost believed Weida, who seemed to have been full of reason. You know best whether you did it voluntarily with Wei Xiaomei. I don't want to be the person who stands in the way of your family reunion. Congratulations! I only gave birth to Jiajia, but you have good fortune indeed. Your son is even older than Jiajia. Chapter 1897, Getting More Serious. In the future, Wei Wei can stand up tall when going out and tell others that he actually has a father. In fact, his father has always been by his side. All these years, your family of 3 has been living under the same roof, yet you haven't been able to acknowledge each other. It's really been tough on you. Thankfully, these difficult times are finally coming to an end. Congratulations to you. Did he really just try to deceive her again like a fool? If she had not known that Wei Wei was Weida's son, she probably would have wavered and accepted Weida's explanation, thinking that this was the first time this had happened between the two of them. Earlier, Xiaonan had reminded her about the problem of Weida's sleeping arrangement every time he returned home to the Wei family's house. At that time, Zihua had not wanted to think about things so negatively. After all, that house was not small. There would be a place for Weida to sleep in at the very least. Besides, no matter how bad Wei Wei's temper was and how much he liked to sleep alone, Weida was his uncle who had raised him after all. Wei Wei would probably treat Weida differently. But today, Zihua was no longer going to buy such a ridiculous explanation. There was no doubt that Weida slept with Wei Xiaomei when he visited his parents' house. At the thought of that, Zihua was utterly disgusted. If Weida had not brought the matter up, Zihua would never have wanted to talk about Weida and Wei Xiaomei ever again. Weida was dumbfounded and felt as though someone had hit him on the head with a hammer so hard that he nearly fainted. Hua, what nonsense are you spouting? Don't let your imagination run wild just because of this one incident and try to make your husband the bad guy. I didn't even know that Xiaomei felt that way about me, but I think it was a recent progression. What does Xiao Wei have to do with me? Xiao Wei is Xiaomei's son with another man. Did this mean that Zihua knew that Xiao Wei was his son? That was impossible. It had already been over a decade, but Zihua had never been suspicious about that. No matter how angry Zihua got about their family treating Xiao Wei better than Jiajia, Zihua had never said such things even in their arguments. So, why would Zihua suddenly mention Xiao Wei being his son? It doesn't matter whether you admit it or not. Don't forget what my family does and the kind of friends I have. I'll ask you again. Do you want an amicable divorce, or shall we go to court? You can choose either. If you want an amicable divorce, let's find a good time to get together for a negotiation. We'll settle everything and sign the divorce papers. It's okay if you choose to go to court too. It won't take too long either. At the very most, it will take another few more days as compared to getting an amicable divorce. Anyway, I've already wasted over 10 years. What's another few more days? I made a mistake, but I think that I can still correct it. There's no need for me to go down that path of mistakes again. She would not allow herself to continue on that path because of her daughter. She had to start a new life afresh for her daughter's sake. Hwa hwa, can we meet? I don't know what happened that led to your great misunderstanding of me. Were you traumatized by this incident? I've said that I'm innocent. That's the truth. I love only you in this lifetime. You're my only wife. Believe me. We can clear any misunderstandings we have once we meet. No matter what doubts you have, I can clarify them. I know you're angry at me for treating Xiaowei too well, but that's because I pity Xiaowei for being fatherless. Hwa hwa, I can't do without you or Jiajia. I swear that I won't meet Xiaowei in the future. I'll never deal with Xiaowei ever again. I'll care only about Jiajia. Since Xiaowei's father didn't want him and doesn't care about him, I've already done my part as his uncle all these years. Hwa hwa, will you forgive me this once? Wei De was frightened stiff. He could tell that Zihua was serious about the divorce. In their 10 years of marriage, he had gotten into quite a number of arguments with Zihua and had even gotten the silent treatment several times. But no matter how bad their arguments got, Zihua had never mentioned the word divorce. Initially, Wei De thought that the matter would be easily solved because Wei Xiaomei had left and he had been able to pin the blame on Wei Xiaomei drugging him. He had thought that he would be able to get away with just some beating and a lecture from the Xi family. But Wei De had never in a million years expected that the situation had gotten so serious. The Xi family could not even be bothered to see him, beat him, or lecture him. The moment Zihua spoke, she decisively proposed a divorce without any room for negotiation. They had been fine just a few days earlier. He had been the old chief's son-in-law and Chief Xi's brother-in-law. He thought that he might even be promoted to the rank of a vice battalion commander since he had allowed Zihua to go home for the new year. But in the blink of an eye, Zihua was now asking for a divorce. All those titles above his rank were going to disappear from his reach. No, this could not be. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Was he having a nightmare? How could things have landed in this state? All right, I understand. Since you want to go to court, you'll receive a court summon very soon. As for the military, you don't have to worry about it. They are quite understanding. You can return to the military once you've solved your personal matters. Before that, the military will never be in a hurry to call you back or ask you to handle anything. They will have someone to take over the work you have on hand. I'm sure they won't let themselves suffer. At this time, Zihua had no need to reason it out with Wei De. She had done that for over 10 years and was through with it. Now, she would just do as she deemed fit. All his excuses were just ugly lies. The more she listened to him, the more she felt that marrying Wei De at that time had been a retarded decision. After those last words, Zihua decisively ended the call without waiting for Wei De's explanation. Then, she added Wei De's name to her blacklist as well. If they were really going to court to fight for a divorce, it would be better for her lawyer to handle these matters. You've made it clear to him. Miaojing had been listening to Zihua's conversation with Wei De. To be honest, thinking about how her daughter had made such a din and had insisted on marrying Wei De against her parents' wishes, Miaojing was afraid that Zihua would have been taken in once again and would change her mind. If that was really the case, Miaojing did not know what she should do to make Zihua come to her senses. Thankfully, that was just overthinking on her part. Her daughter was still level-headed and had not fallen into Wei De's trap. Tearing down 10 temples would be better than destroying one marriage. But as for her daughter's marriage, it would be much better for her to get divorced. Hearing how resolute her daughter was in getting a divorce, Miaojing felt much more at ease. Chapter 1898, Getting a Divorce or Not. There's nothing to be clear about. If he doesn't understand, I'll just have to make him understand with my actions. Zihua sneered. If they relied only on talk, Wei De would definitely win. Wei De had 10 mouths and would be able to persuade someone to believe the most ridiculous things. Because she knew exactly how Wei De was and how his temper was, she had not bothered to persuade him. She would use her actions to show Wei De that there was no room for any change in the situation between them. That's good. Zai Sheng's already arranged the lawyers for you. As for yesterday's DNA report, I think the results should be out soon. With that report and the report from your friend about Wei De's past in the countryside, I'm sure that you'll get your divorce. China is a lawful society. Wei De's behavior was cheating someone into marriage. Since their marriage was not based on equality and fairness, it was only natural that their marriage would not be accepted. Miao Jing hoped that her daughter's life would get better after the divorce. Yes, Zai Hua replied monotonously. Her actions would mean much more than just talk. With all these materials and evidence, the lawyer had said that the probability of winning this case was over 90%. As long as she did not change her mind and insisted on getting divorced from Wei De, she would definitely be able to do so. Mom, I'm going to check on Jiajia. All right. Have a good chat with Jiajia. Usually, no child would be willing to see their parents get divorced. No matter how bad Wei De was, he was still Jiajia's father. Before knowing about the relationship between Wei De and Wei Xiaomei, Jiajia had still looked up to her father even though he had not treated her very well. Wei De had harmed so many people, even his own daughter. If a person like this was not punished and could lead a smooth-sailing life, it would be too unfair. When Zai Hua entered the room, Jiajia was having a chat with Jiao Nan. It was not really a chat since the two of them were simply sitting there in silence while her daughter seemed to be contemplating something. What are you guys talking about? Why are you so serious? Mom. Seeing that Zai Hua had arrived, Jiajia secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Auntie Jia recommended that I transfer out of my current school. Jiajia was in the midst of considering whether to do so. Although she did not have any close friends in school, much less anyone whom she would miss in this school, she had been there for more than a year. As such, she was already familiar with the school and its environment. If she were to transfer to another school, she was afraid that she would not be able to adapt to the new environment. She was a junior high school student and was about to take the high school entrance examination. She was afraid that the change in surroundings would affect her studies. It was under Wei De's influence that Jiajia placed great emphasis on her academics early on. Wei De took his position and performance in the military seriously, and Jiajia knew that she needed to do well in school and maintain good grades so that she would have a good life in the future. In fact, the only positive contribution Wei De had ever made in his daughter's life was to inculcate this positive mindset in Jiajia that she had to work hard for her future. Of course, Wei De's intention of inculcating such a value in Jiajia was so that Jiajia would create less trouble for Zai Hua in the future. In that way, he would be able to ask Zai Hua for help on Wei Wei's behalf. Wei De was all too clear that Zai Hua would definitely choose to give up Wei Wei and pour everything out for Jiajia if there was a conflict between the two of them. Wei De could not think for Zai Hua and could not force Zai Hua to pity the fatherless Wei Wei and let her only daughter fend for herself. Zai Hua had never been someone like that. Even an average person would never do that. As such, all Wei De could do was to take Jiajia's hand and try to teach her to be independent and to have a strong character so that Jiajia would be less likely to come into conflict with Wei Wei. Now that her parents were on the verge of getting a divorce, Jiajia had to think this through and determine if there was really a need to transfer to another school when she was about to take the high school entrance examination and the kind of impact it would have on her studies. Why do you have to transfer to another school? Zai Hua asked in confusion as she sat down. That school may not be the best in Pingcheng, but it's not bad either. Jiajia's already used to that school, and it won't be long before she graduates. Won't Jiajia be too tired from transferring to another school at this point in time? As long as it concerned her daughter, Zai Hua would take the time to listen and think about it. It's necessary. Qiao Nan insisted. I'm worried that if you don't take this opportunity and let Jiajia transfer out now, she might not have a good learning environment once the school term starts. Not only might her learning environment be ruined, but she might be affected emotionally as well. Then, she won't be able to concentrate on her studies. So, I think it's better that we make some preparation ahead of time to prevent these things from happening. Qiaonan had only made such a suggestion out of concern for Jiejie. Qiaonan was clear that the high school entrance examination was important to Jiejie. That was why there was an even greater need to avoid all unnecessary trouble. To be honest, Qiaonan had more experience with such things than anyone else in the Zai family. After all, she had always grown up under such circumstances, whether it was in her dream or in real life. There was no use in just talking or hiding. The only thing to do was to go away as far as possible and to sever all ties with the other party. Thinking about it for a while, Zihua quickly realized what Qiaonan was concerned about. You're worried that the Wei family will bug Jiejie. I'm not just worried about it. I'm sure that it'll happen. Qiaonan spoke in a low voice. I think that you're pretty clear of why Wei married you in the first place. It wasn't as beautiful as you imagined it to be. In reality, his reasons were very realistic. You're clearer than me about how ambitious Wei is with regards to his career. Even though you were his wife, his dreams were not fulfilled that quickly either. Now that you guys are getting a divorce, Wei is pretty much bidding goodbye to his military career. Do you think that Wei would agree to this divorce? Wei knew that he would never be able to convince Zihua, and neither did he dare to show up in front of the Zai family. As such, Jiejie was Wei's only choice. Perhaps she was Wei's best choice even. One should never underestimate how much a mother can sacrifice for her children. There were many families in China in which couples had already reached their breaking point in their relationships. But in many cases, women chose to suffer meekly and refused to divorce because they were the weaker party. Chapter 1899, You'll understand when you're older. It was just to give their children a complete family since their children did not want them to separate. For almost all women, children were their weakness. Wei was smart and did not need to even understand this common phenomenon. All he had to do was have a little understanding of Zihua. Then, he would target Jiejie and use Jiejie so that Zihua would not proceed with the divorce. If I wasn't mistaken, I heard that the Wei family came over and said that Jiejie was missing, right? Yes, Zihua replied indifferently. The Wei family's concern and anxiousness were too fake and unbearable. As a mother, the one thing you thought about when you first entered the police station was about Jiejie's whereabouts. If it were you, the Zai family would have mobilized all its resources yesterday and would have flipped Pingcheng upside down just to find Jiejie. Think about what the Zai family would do and then think about how the Wei family only thought about Jiejie today. Why do you think the Wei family suddenly thought about Jiejie? Qiaonan's question was so realistic that Jiejie's eyes turned red. After hearing Qiaonan's question, even a child like Jiejie understood that Wei refused to get a divorce from Zihua. That was why he had suddenly thought of his daughter, Jiejie, in such a situation, thinking that she would serve him some purpose. That was also why he had been in such a hurry to find her. Jiejie knew that Wei's concern toward her now was not out of pure love. Her father was merely treating her as a means to an end of saving his marriage with her mother. Don't underestimate the Wei family's ability to pester people. Once the Wei family is left with nowhere to go, and since they aren't willing to let you go, Jiejie will become their target. The Wei family is related to Jiejie, so the school won't have any right to stop them from picking Jiejie up. If that is really the case, the school might not be able to give Jiejie a peaceful and quiet learning environment even if they were to find out about her family background, despite the Wei family not taking Jiejie away and the Zai family protecting her well. Children may not always mean what they say, but it is exactly because of that that their words are even more so hurtful. After saying all that, Qiaonan could not help but sigh. She was not saying that Zihua and the Zai family were not thinking about Jiejie. In her dream, she had lived with the family for over 10 years and knew the Zai family's characters. It was already not easy that the Zai family still had such a pure and kind side to them in the military and society. They were truly good to Jiejie and had Jiejie's well-being at heart. In Zihua's eyes, Jiejie was the Wei family's granddaughter, after all. Even though the Wei family did not treat Jiajia as well as they treated Wei Wei, they would probably not harm Jiajia either. Yes, the Wei family would not deliberately harm Jiajia. But they might very well hurt Jiajia in the process while trying to achieve their own goals. The Wei family would never consider Jiajia while trying to protect their own interests. Mom, since there are still a few days before the school term starts, let's go get the transfer procedures done. Thankfully, Jiajia had been decisive enough, and the moment Jiaonan said such things, Jiajia immediately made a decision. Mom, I want to transfer to Pingcheng Junior High School. Pingcheng High School is quite a good school, and I'd like to attend Pingcheng High School. It's even better if I go to the affiliated junior high school. When Zihua had first purchased her house, she had already thought about the quality of education at Pingcheng Elementary School and Pingcheng High School. But there were no houses she could purchase near those schools. Besides, Zihua was the only one paying for the house. When she had purchased the first house, she had chosen the location considering its distance from Wei Wei's kindergarten. But when Jiajia grew up, there were no schools nearby that had a reputation like Pingcheng High School. Pingcheng Junior High School did not have any boarding facilities. As such, it was a little troublesome for Jiajia to attend that school. But high school was different. Boarding was required in high school. That would be much more convenient. Jiajia's initial intention was to attend Pingcheng High School when she got to high school. But with an opportunity like that, Jiajia decided that it was better if she attended her dream school even earlier. Zihua hesitated for a moment. Do you really not want to go to the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China? Its reputation was better than Pingcheng High School's, after all. Initially, Weida had spared no effort in trying to get Wei Wei into the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China because his grades had not made the cut. Thus, they had to rely on their relations and money to get him in. In fact, Zihua had always known that Wei Wei had only gotten into the school due to Weida's efforts. Weida had been the one who had sacrificed his reputation. The Wei family had spent a lot of money to allow Wei Wei to attend the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China. As such, finances had been tight for the Wei family for a long time. During that time, the Wei family had relied on Zihua's allowance to get by. But the school fees of the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China were high. The sum of money donated to get Wei Wei in was in no way sufficient. On the surface, Zihua had to raise her daughter and was not willing to support Wei Wei. But in reality, if it was not for Zihua supporting the Wei family, paying for their expenses, and even giving the elderly Wei couple 3,000 yuan a month, Wei Wei would never have been able to attend the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China. In short, Zihua had been the one paying for Wei Wei's education. Zihua had helped someone else's son study in the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China. As such, there was no need to neglect her daughter and force her to attend a school that was less than the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China. No way. Jiajia's expression soured and she refused decisively. Zihua sighed and her helplessness could be seen on her face. You don't have to worry. Once you get into the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China, Wei Wei would have graduated and gone to university. You won't be in the same school. Wei Wei had transferred over from a village school and had thus started elementary school a little later. But Jiajia was different and had started elementary school early. As such, although there was an age difference of 6 years between the two of them, they were only 3 grades apart in school. Jiajia was like her studious uncle, Zai Sheng, after all, and had skipped a grade in elementary school. If not for the Wei family finding an excuse to say that it was better to solidify her foundations and that there was no need to deprive Jiajia of a happy childhood, Jiajia would have been able to skip another grade in elementary school. When she was younger, Jiajia had thought that her grandma's family meant well for her. But now, Jiajia realized that if she was only 2 grades away from Wei Wei, if both she and Wei Wei were to enter the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China and the family was unable to carry that burden, her paternal grandma's family was afraid that her mom would choose to give up on her nephew, Wei Wei, to support her own daughter. Her mom paid for the family's expenses, after all. Chapter 1900, Whole World Collapsing. Her grandma's family was afraid that there would be a conflict between her and Wei Wei, but she hated Wei Wei and did not want to be in the same school as him. Jia could not help but wonder if Wei Wei had always known who his father was. Thinking back to how Wei Wei always tried to grab her father's attention and win against her every time, Wei Wei could very well have been mocking her. Jia was disgusted at the thought of that. One was her father, while the other was her cousin, who was now her elder brother. And he was the most disgusting kind of elder brother, no less. Thinking about her paternal grandma's house now felt like a nightmare to Jia. Jia refused to admit that Wei Wei was part of the reason she did not want to attend the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China, but this was just part of the reason indeed. Mom, you're overthinking it. Wei Wei doesn't have much to do with me not wanting to study in the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China. I prefer the learning environment at Pingcheng High School. If Pingcheng Junior High School provided boarding, I would have gone there too. Seeing Zihua's miserable face, Jia could only beg Qiaonan for help. Auntie Qiao, what do you think about Pingcheng Junior High School? I think it's pretty good. Jia winked at Qiaonan, asking her to help her out. She had realized that her mother usually listened to Auntie Qiao's advice. Qiaonan let out a weak smile. I think that Pingcheng Junior High School is not bad. I attended that school too. As an alumnus, I can't possibly put it down. Unfortunately for her, she had not been able to graduate. To make up for her regrets, she would walk this path again. That was an unexpected surprise for Jia. Really? Then, won't I be schoolmates with you if I go to Pingcheng Junior High School? See, Mom? I want to go to Pingcheng Junior High School. Anyway, we'll probably be living in Grandma's house, right? Grandma's house is near Pingcheng Junior High School. If you buy me a bicycle, I'll be able to cycle to school. You won't have to worry about me. It'll be convenient. In the past, Jia knew that her mother had not been on good terms with her maternal grandma's family and had not kept in contact with them. Although she knew that her grandma's house was near to the school of her dreams, the sensible Jia had never made such a request or hoped that Zihua would be able to fulfill them. But now, the situation was different. Jia felt that she might as well put it out in the open now that she had such an opportunity. It was easier to resolve all their problems this way. Seeing how happy and excited her daughter was to attend Pingcheng Junior High School, Zihua felt a little sour. After all those years of perseverance, not only had she made her own life miserable, but she had also made her daughter suffer. That was to say that she had not even noticed just how much she had neglected her daughter all these years. Zihua lowered her voice. If you really want it, I'll get the transfer procedures settled tomorrow. She could not care less about her pride or persistence in front of her daughter. She was someone with her own family. As long as her family stood by her side, there was no one who would be able to bully her, not even the Wei family. Her daughter should have been able to live such a carefree life from the start. It had already been over 10 years. There was no point in letting her daughter live such a life anymore. She would use all of her resources for her daughter now. Jia had been too obedient in the past. How nice it would have been if she had been just a little more willful or selfish. After making that decision, Zihua immediately got the transfer procedures done. As such, on the first day of school, Jia had become a student of Pingcheng Junior High School. It was also on this day that Wei Dai, who had been granted a vacation from the military, was served a court summon. His divorce case with Zihua was going to court. The moment he received the court summon, Wei Dai's hand trembled. Even though Zihua had already said that she wanted a divorce in her call, Wei Dai had held on to the hope that Zihua had only said so out of anger. Besides, he had been trying hard to find Jia to use her to change the situation. But after receiving the summon, Weida understood just how determined Zihua was to get this divorce. When Mother Wei saw it, her whole face turned pale too, and she immediately started sobbing while slapping her thigh. Does this woman really want to drive us to our deaths? She's trying to drag our family down with her. Shouldn't she think about how no one had been willing to marry her at her age and how Ada sacrificed himself to marry her? Why doesn't she know how to be grateful? Our Ada is so good, but she's asking for a divorce. She's heartless. A scum. All right. Stop crying. Father Wei was utterly frustrated. He wanted to smoke a cigarette, but his shivering hands could not even get the cigarette alight. After a while, Father Wei eventually placed the cigarette down and slight-eyed Wei Wei, who was hiding in a corner quietly. Xiao Wei, you're in your final year of high school. It's the most critical period for you now. Don't get yourself into the adults' matters. Go back to your room and revise your work. You're still young. It'll be better for you to study harder and get good grades. Father Wei had to make some preparations now that his daughter-in-law was getting divorced from his son. It would be impossible to rely on his daughter-in-law for his grandson's future. If his grandson's results were good, he would still be able to get into a good university and find a good job in the future. That way, the Wei family would not become good-for-nothings at the very least and would be able to survive in Pingcheng. Since his grandson could no longer rely on Zihua or Weidai, Father Wei had no other choice but to let Wei Wei fend for himself. Not only did Wei Wei have no one to rely on now, but the Wei family might even have to rely on him in the future. Father and Mother Wei had already gotten used to living the high life. Their lives had been tough back in the countryside, where they had been farmers. Because of their daughter-in-law, Zihua, the elderly couple had retired. Although Mother Wei had adapted well in the first 2 years, Father Wei, who had been working all his life, had felt a little uncomfortable. But over a decade had passed, and Father Wei had already gotten used to such a lifestyle. He was used to not needing to work while still receiving an allowance of 1,500 yuan from his daughter-in-law every month. Without such an allowance, the Wei family's expenses would be a problem on their own. At this time, Father Wei finally realized how greatly the Wei family would be affected now that they were losing their daughter-in-law, Zihua. Without Zihua, the Wei family had nothing. Ada, do you really have to get a divorce from Zihua? Father Wei asked as his head throbbed. As long as this divorce did not go through, they would have no problems at all. But once they were to get a divorce, the Wei family's world would collapse.